Recently, the Idaho Combat Robot League hosted their first event over in Boise, King of the Anthill. I wasn't too far away from it at the time, so I decided to head over and see what Jumbo could do. It was more or less unchanged from the last event, with the exception of the hubs. Since the TPU ones I was using were so flexible, they would deform when the set screws were tightened down, leading to them not getting a great clamp on the motor shafts and falling off. To fix this, I switched to nylon and put way more material above the square nut that the set screw goes into, ensuring they wouldn't come loose. To try and retain some flexibility, I also thinned the sections that attached to the wheels. With that said, the hubs weren't my only concern. Taking the blade off after Crimson Bot Brawl, I found 2 of the 3 screws attaching the weapon hub to the motor to have their tops sheared off. If that last one went too, there would have been a repeat of what happened against Barney. With this discovery, I was weary of it happening again, but I didn't have time to do anything about it other than just check the screws after every match and hope they held up. When I got to the event, I was surprised to find that it would be streamed courtesy of Sin Shop, who kindly gave me permission to use their footage in this video. A link to the full tournament will be in the description below. My first match was against Cheddar, a tracked bot that had a giant wedge made of TPU with a PLA shell. This bot was actually supposed to compete in the plastic ant weight class, but unfortunately TPU was banned from the category, so the builder was a good sport and put it into the full combat class instead. Okay, so starting this match, you're going to notice that I decided to use my lightweight blade, the symmetrical one, for this match. I figured that since Cheddar didn't have a destructive weapon of its own, and I hadn't really had a chance to try out the symmetrical blade yet, it would be a great opportunity. So to start off the match, I'm not aiming for anywhere in particular, just trying to get hits in general. You'll notice that pieces are going to come off of that wedge there. And those pieces, though, are all PLA, just the shell. The TPU structure underneath stays very much intact and does a good job of holding the front defense together. So it was about here, I think, that I started to notice the blade wobbling. And my mind went back to those sheared screws that hold the blade on. So just to be safe, I spun the weapon way down. To the point where it could barely do any damage. But it was still spinning, and it was still getting hits in. So I was hoping that that would be enough. I just didn't want the blade to fall off, because if that happened, I would be in a whole lot of trouble.
We are definitely keeping it Keebler, as they say.
So you can see with hits there, for example, I'm able to obviously hit him and bounce off of it, but it's not really doing as much to his wedge as it was.
Right, Jumbo's got the front facing there of
I was hoping maybe I could get a good hit in on one of his tracks, but with how slow the weapon was spinning, even if I did, I don't think it would have done very much.
It looks as though that was the plan all along, because it does look as though that front there is the majority of the weight. And so far, nothing's really been done to immobilize their opponent.
There are still some pieces coming off of the PLA part, but that was probably because they were already weakened from the earlier hits.
You have a mere 25 seconds remaining on that timer. That's what we were looking at. And this is about to pull into the station here very soon. In these last couple seconds, can Cheddar make a difference? Can Jumbo...
So at this point, there's only about 10 seconds left in the match, and I figured, what the heck. I cranked the weapon back up and got a few more bites out of the wedge, a few more bites of cheese, and then it went to time. This was Jumbo's first ever match to go to the judges, and thankfully it did enough to snag the win. With the blade wobbling, I immediately suspected the issue to be the same screws as before, but thankfully it was instead the screws holding the weapon motor mount to the frame that came loose. This was a quick fix. Next up was ICU, a robot that was essentially a camera on wheels. Though it did have a lifting spatula, it really wasn't built for combat, so I decided to have a bit of fun with this fight. So coming right out of the gate, I did not spin up the weapon. Instead, I used Jumbo as more of a thwack bot, using those rear stabilizer legs as little tappy sticks to poke and whack ICU on the head with. Do a little spin move there. And this goes on for quite some time, so I've sped up the match a bit. We're able to see he's able to actually get a decent pin in on me there. But with a bit over a minute left, I decided that enough was enough, and I spun up the blade.
Minute and 7 remaining on the clock. Oh, and the weapon has spun up. It looks as though Jumbo may have had enough.
So on this first hit, I was able to tear the spatula off.
Flipper has been separated from ICU. Okay, so now with this
Then I just
weight reduction,
tried to see what else I could do, hopefully without hitting the battery.
blast forward. No, it's
Taking a wheel off is a good start.
It's going to blast in a circle. It is going to slowly
So I went in for some more.
sustained explosion.
I was able to knock him over,
30 seconds remaining on the clock.
and just for good measure, hit him with the sticks a few more times.
Is that going to be enough? I'll bet he's regretting
And
first-person view now.
that was all she wrote. Huge props to the builder of ICU for being willing to put it in the arena against full combat ant weights. He also put the footage up on YouTube, and you know what that means.
Slam cam! How about that?
Wow, you like that one.
Who doesn't? Who doesn't love the slam cam? We get so many letters. More slam cam!
The video of the onboard footage for the full fight is posted in the description. After this was easily Jumbo's scariest opponent yet, Anthill, a modified baby black frost kit. Last time I went against a drum spinner, I just barely snagged the win, so I was prepared for a brutal match. So with this match, a big hit to start. Ideally, I didn't want to go weapon to weapon with Anthill. I wanted to get around to the sides, maybe get the wheels. But ultimately, I just had to do what I could. You'll notice I swapped the asymmetrical blade for this one. Unfortunately, there are going to be a few moments in this match where you can't see very well from this camera view, so you're just going to have to be looking at the reflection in the background. Here I get a good hit on him. You'll notice one of those covers for the hubs is missing, and the wheel falls off shortly afterward. So I figured maybe if I could get around to the other wheel, I could finish this off pretty quick. And sure enough, I was able to do that. They didn't count Anthill out right away, because it was technically still moving under the power of its weapon. But you'll notice here that it's going to get to the wall, and that halts its movement, so it was counted out, and I was able to move on. Jumbo took some big hits in this match, but it was able to dish out the damage where it counted. Anthill's builder said that part of the reason the wheels fell off is because they were mounted on experimental plastic hubs, which didn't end up working too well. He gave one of them from the match to me, which was nice of him. With this, I made it to the winners finals and was slated to go up against Voltshot, a solid 4-wheel drive vert. So with this match, I wanted to try and go weapon to weapon, hopefully to disable his, but pretty quick on, you'll notice that my weapon actually jams up. I tried to get it fired back up, but with no luck, so I figured I would just save what I could and tapped out. Went down to loser's bracket. You couldn't see it very well in the video, but Jumbo basically self-destructed. The blade got angled and tore into the frame, ripping a huge chunk loose that got in the way of the weapon spinning up. Turns out that the screws for the weapon motor mount had come loose again, allowing the blade to wobble into the body. Thankfully, I had a spare frame on hand. I just had to take some time transplanting all the components. Now in the loser's bracket, I had to endure a rematch with Anthill, now sporting tried and true aluminum hubs. So the strategy here was very much the same as the first match. Try and avoid weapon-on-weapon impacts, like I didn't do there, and aim for the wheels and the back of the robot. Of course, I took some pretty big hits of my own, but I was willing to take those if it meant I could get the occasional hit to the backside of Anthill. That was a really bad driving move from me, reversing right into his weapon. That is the kind of move that could have torn my blade off. But thankfully it didn't, and I was able to keep going. Here he was kind of out of control, so I tried to capitalize, get on top of him, and do some damage with the blade. Now here, you're going to notice I have some trouble moving. One of my hubs actually got cracked, and because of that, it jammed up. And if I didn't have any momentum going into the point where it was jamming, then it would stop the wheel. I was able to get over to the corner, though, where Anthide was. Try and get some hits in on it, but here you can see Jumbo's kind of struggling to move.
Nothing happening in there sounds good. That's what's going on right now.
So Anthide gets away here. And I'm able to build up some momentum to start chasing him. It was, I think, about this point that I noticed that one of his wheels was down. So I decided to try and be a bit slower, be a bit more methodical about my attacks. Try and avoid weapon-on-weapon impacts just like you saw there. And try and focus on the wheels where I could. Anthide was hopping around, still very much mobile. I was able to take some more pieces out of the wheels. Anthide was able to get a lot of hits in on my wheels, but I was perfectly okay with that. That's what the wheels are for. Didn't do a very good job driving there. But still able to get hits in on the wheels. Another hit there. At this point, I think they said the match was winding down, so just tried to smother him in the last few seconds, and this back and forth match went to time. This match was much closer than the first, but Jumbo did just enough to eke out the win again. Anthide's builder was nice enough to give me another damaged part of his bot, the top armor. This piece is custom made out of leather, which I haven't seen any other robots use before, so it was really cool to take something like this home. The finals were set, and another rematch was queued up, this time against Voltshot. There were no second chances now, so I tightened everything down, charged the battery, and put Jumbo in the arena one more time. So, in hindsight, this might not have been the best strategy, but my idea was to go weapon to weapon. Hopefully, I would be able to snipe his weapon belt, and then once that happened, I could slow things down a bit and choose my shots a bit more methodically. You'll notice right here, though, once again, early into the match, the weapon jams up. Now, there was no loser's bracket to drop into, so I just did my best to stay in the fight. Tried going into thwackbot mode like I did against ICU, hoping that that would at least score me some aggression points. But Voltshot's weapon obviously still up, and I was not in a good position. Like I said though, I just tried to do what I could to keep moving. Stranger things have happened with matches that I've been in. So here I start to notice that the drive isn't quite happy with me. With that being said, right there you can see on the left side of the screen, that was Voltshot's weapon belt that came off. So I figured, okay, we're both without a weapon now, the field's a little more even. Maybe if I can show aggression with the thwacking, maybe I can still take this. And so that's what I did for a while. Voltshot doing its best to push me around. And then right here, the drive just pretty much died on me.
Wait a second.
I wasn't quite sure what was happening. My thought was that the drive system was overheating, so they start counting me out, and my plan was right before they finish the count out, I start moving again, just to give it as much time as possible to cool. And probably with like 1 second left, Jumbo was able to limp out of its circumference and stay in the match.
That was the closest to a count out that has been avoided that I think I've ever seen.
You can tell though that
30 seconds remaining.
the drive is not doing as well as it should.
Ball there.
Either it's twitching or it's just moving very slowly. I think here they started counting me out again, but I was able to start moving again.
Back in action again. Jumbo seems to be having some trouble.
And despite the drive issues, somehow the match went the full 3 minutes, and I just had to hope that my thwackbot strategy would have been enough.
Is the match.
Though I was able to make it the full 3 minutes this time, the judge's decision deservedly went to Voltshot. The weapon went down due to one of the magnets in the motor getting dislodged from one of the early hits. I'm not exactly sure what was going on with the drive though. At first I thought the motors were overheating, but after taking it apart, it looks like the ESC might have been getting a bit too toasty as well. Moving forward, I'm going to see what I can do to implement drive pulleys to add some extra reduction and lessen the strain on the motors. Jumbo was originally built to have belted drive, but the idea was scrapped due to weight. Guess I'll have to see what I can do to make it work. Overall though, I'm still happy with how the bot performed at this event, and I'm looking forward to other competitions in the future.